All right, welcome back. We're continuing our journey through the Williams family saga, and now we've reached the sixth generation, Daniel Williams. His is a story that's deeply rooted in that Monmouth County soil, a life that was just full of promise, but was tragically cut short.
So where do we pick things up? Well, right where the last story ended, with the division of the family homestead after Daniel's father passed away. This newspaper notice you see here from 1832, this is a huge deal. It's the official, legal starting point of his life as an independent landowner. It's what gave him his piece of the family legacy and really set the stage for everything that was to come.
So let's talk about that inheritance on the Metedeconk. It was time for a son to take his place. And you've got to realize, Daniel was the third generation in a row to farm this very land. He took his 60-acre share right there on the river and started to build his own life on the foundations that his father and grandfather had already laid down. Of course, it wasn't just about the land. His personal life was putting down some serious roots, too. In 1826, he married Elizabeth Layton. And this is a pattern we've seen before, right? The Williams family connecting with other established local families, like the Laytons and the Skidmores, knitting those names even deeper into the community fabric.
Okay, so this brings us to him building the family homestead, which is all about ambition, family, and growth. And look, Daniel wasn't content to just inherit the farm and let it be. No way. He immediately got to work, not just maintaining, but actively expanding his family's legacy. He was driven to build.
And wow, did they ever build a family. Together, Daniel and Elizabeth had 9 children. And you can see that deep respect for their own history right in the names they chose, which was a pretty common practice back then. Their first daughter, Mary, was named for Daniel's mother, and their first son, Thomas Edward, was named for Elizabeth's father. It's a beautiful tradition.
And that ambition carried right over to the land. He systematically went about buying out the shares from his siblings and their heirs, pulling the family property back together. He expanded that initial 60-acre farm into a really substantial 100-acre estate. And you gotta picture this. It wasn't just empty land. This was a thriving, productive operation. A true homestead, you know? It had an apple orchard, fields cleared for farming, and even valuable tracts of oak and pine timber. The whole thing was built to support that large and growing family for generations to come. So let's talk about what happened next. A sudden, tragic end. A future interrupted. I mean, everything seemed to be going perfectly, right? He's got this big, healthy family, a successful farm that's still growing. His future looked totally secure. But all that prosperity, all that growth, was about to come to a shocking and tragic close that would change his family's story forever.
He had really done everything right. He honored his family, he'd worked hard, building a life for them on the very same solid ground his father and grandfather had farmed before him.
But the question is, how long would it last? And when you look at the historical record, it's pretty stark. That stability, which he had so carefully built, turned out to be tragically fleeting. He was just 41 years old. His youngest child wasn't even 2. In 1843, Daniel took his own life. It's just a devastating event, and the way it was documented at the time, well, it was documented in the stark and pretty unforgiving language of the era. Just listen to this quote. It's taken directly from the official coroner's inquest. Not having the fear of God before his eyes, but being seduced by the devil. Wow. That language gives you such a powerful, unfiltered glimpse into the 19th century perspective on a tragedy like this. It tells you so much about the social and religious views of the time, and just how differently they processed something that we understand in a completely different way today. And this, of course, leads us to a family left behind. 9 children and a completely uncertain future. I mean, his sudden death left his wife Elizabeth and their 9 kids in an incredibly vulnerable spot. Their whole world was just turned upside down in an instant. And this table right here, this really drives home the scale of the challenge they were facing. Look at those ages. The oldest, Mary, she's only 16, and the youngest, just 1 year old. And right there in the mix, you see a 5-year-old boy named Daniel David, who is going to become absolutely central to where the story goes next. So what do? Well, the family had to adapt just to survive. We can see from public records like the 1850 census that Elizabeth did eventually remarry. She and the younger children moved into the household of her new husband, Gilbert L. Layton. It's really a story of navigating this new reality, and it shows the kind of resilience it took to get through a loss like that. So this brings us to the documentary trail.
how do we secure the link to Generation 7? I mean, this was such a disruptive, pivotal moment in the family's history. So how can we be absolutely sure about the genealogical connection from this tragic chapter to the next one?
Well, the documentary evidence is crystal clear. The estate records that were filed right after Daniel's death list all 9 of his children by name. And in that list, we find the critical, unbroken link to the future, his 5-year-old son, Daniel David Williams. And here's an interesting little side note. Because his father passed away when he was so young, he was never called Junior.
So this all leaves us with a really compelling question, and that's what's going to drive our next explainer. You have a father gone, a farm stuck in limbo, and 9 children facing a totally uncertain future. So how does a 5-year-old boy, Daniel David Williams, grow up to overcome this immense tragedy and carry on the family name into the Civil War era and beyond? That story is up next.